Today on Context, there's a complex, high-tech tug-of-war going on for our attention. How do we find the right voices in hundreds of social media pulpits we encounter every day? Are we at the mercy of algorithms and bots directing us where they want us to go? We speak with thought leaders and provokers about social media pulpits and platforms, who we choose to follow, and what we choose to share in our saturated digital universe is important. And it's changing us in ways we aren't even aware of.
I'm Lorna Dueck.
I'm Sheldon Neal.
And I'm Molly Thomas, and this is Context.
Monitoring the mayhem. Upwards of 25,000 online posts are approved each day. Did you know that social media giants outsource that work? We'll talk about the ethical implications. The video is raw, in your face, and daring. This is America, a song by rap artist Childish Gambino, has become an online phenomenon. Dr. Ricky Jones is with us to discuss what is under the surface of that song. Using social media to serve God, how two young men use their social circles and talents to influence a new generation. And talk about an influencer on family life. Rochelle Clark, formerly known as Light Skin Girl, is here to tell us the secrets of making it big as a YouTube star.
Well, did you know digital janitors literally clean up what we see on our social feeds? But who are these people that get the final say, and what does this cleaning do to free thought and free speech? Hans Block is a co-creator of the documentary The Cleaners, and he joins us from Germany today. Hans, you know, it's staggering to me that people overseas are screening 25,000 Facebook posts a day. Do these online janitors really get time to process what they're looking at?
No, that's the problem actually, because they're getting content all over the world, and you need so much knowledge and cultural background to understand what you're reviewing all day long. And that's really the biggest problem, because Facebook and Twitter and Google always trying to tell us that these guidelines or community standards are in a way objective and you just need to execute the rules, but it's not the case. And there are so many mistakes because the content moderators didn't get what they're reviewing, and that leads to not just a regrettable mistake, it leads to like a systematical error.
So what is the ethical dilemma then for you?
I think there are two big dilemmas when we talk about content moderation. The first is the working conditions of the workers in the Philippines, because Facebook, Twitter, and Google outsourcing the service to a third party, to an outsourcing company, and the workers are reviewing 8 to 10 hours, the worst you can imagine, and this for sure has an effect on their mental health. And the workers in the Philippines, they have no psychological support at all, and as we talking about that in our documentary, that they're facing really big problems because of the work, and there's, for example, a very, very high suicide rate in the industry. This is one of the big problems. The second big problem is that Facebook and co, they became in a way our digital public sphere. So it's the biggest powerful media we have nowadays, and so many people informing themselves over these social media tools, and we have to ask who's responsible for what is published and what is not published. And they are 18, 19 years old Filipino people deciding about what we can see or what we're supposed to see in the online world and what not. And this is really a scandal, I would say.
You know, one expert in your film says that the danger is that we might lose democracy because we are willing to give it up. I mean, what can the average person do, though? We're talking about the biggest corporations in the world.
I mean, we have to do things on different layers. One layer, for example, is the average person, the user, because we have to consider ourselves like a digital citizen, fighting for the digital rights and use the platform in a different way. It's not just any longer a tool where you can share holiday pictures or cute cat videos. It becomes like our digital public sphere. And We have to put pressure also as the user on these social media platforms. We have to use our community we have online and fight for that they making things differently, because this is a private company, and the private company is now running our digital constitutions, and we don't know about the constitution. And just imagine if in the analog world we have like a private person who's creating our rules and behavior. It would be we will go on the streets, and we have to wake up.
That was Hans Block, co-creator of the Cleaners documentary. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Bye bye.
This is America. Yeah, yeah. Don't catch you slipping now. Hey, don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. Look how I'm kicking now.
It's the music video that hits a nerve. Currently at over 75 million views and counting on YouTube, This Is America by rapper Childish Gambino tackles race relations, police brutality in the U.S., even highlighting biblical themes and raising larger questions and discussions that apply here in Canada.
We can't come here. No. We're too famous. I can't go here anymore.
Here to help us dive deeper into this is Dr. Ricky Jones, professor and chair of the Pan-African Studies Department at the University of Louisville. We just heard a quote by the late provocative pop artist Andy Warhol, his famous statement on everyone getting their 15 minutes of fame. Are we living in a time of, you get your 15 minutes, you get your 15 seconds rather, and away you go?
Warhol was provocative. I did not know that. Yeah, I think a lot of people certainly reach that when they talk about their personal 15 minutes of fame. But I think a deeper question is not just the fame of persons, but how we popularize and make famous ideas or even conflicts to make the world better or worse. And so they're two very different conversations.
And Dr. Ricky, you say this is not the first time talking about This Is America that video an artist has explored, that being Childish Gambino, themes of racial tension and police brutality in their music. Why has this music video then struck such a nerve?
Because of the optics. I think the optics where it surprises you. If you watch the video, it's shocking. He seems to just be dancing around playfully. You really don't know where it's going, and then he starts shooting people. But the idea about social strife, about death, about all of these things have been present in Black music for a very long time. You can go back to the music of Gil Scott-Heron and his poetry, or the poetry of the last poets themselves, or even the music of Marvin Gaye and others. And so you hear these themes about Black struggle and oppression and all those things. It's not new, because when you really think about what's happened in America, at least, and probably around the world, there's been a special place reserved for Black entertainers, whether they be athletes or musicians or poets. And so Childish Gambino, Donald Glover that is just using this stage, as many other conscious Black poets have used it to highlight these issues.
I want to talk to you about the idea of the emotional contagion theory, the idea that one person's actions there, whether it be conscious or subconscious, but their outward actions has the ability to trigger like actions in somebody else. This video has done something like that with much of the culture, both here in Canada and in the U.S. What do you have to say about that with This Is America as the backdrop?
That's not a new idea. It's a different name, but you can trace it, that back to people like Lawrence Grossberg, who wrote this fabulous book in the early 90s called We Gotta Get Out of This Place. And he talked about affective, emotional epidemics. And so that happens where people see things and they certainly will copy them, and people will pay attention to them. I think that's really a part of the charge of the artist. Is your art collective? Is it committing? Does it have some type of consciousness? Does it make people think? And so those things happen.
I really am excited to ask you this question. You say America, when we've spoken, is at a place where it must decide what kind of America it wants to be. What decision has it made when you look at its landscape?
That's really a troubling question, and many of us have posed that. When I was younger, much younger like you, in my 20s and looking good like you, I wrote in a way that I wanted to prove what I knew, right? As I enter in my 50s, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm asking more questions. I'm admitting that I don't know certain things. So I'm asking that question, and others are asking that question of America. What does America want to be? A progressive place that moves into the 21st century where we are more humane, more decent, more spiritually sound? Or we're a country that's choosing to, at best, mid-20th century sensibilities, and at worst, mid-19th century sensibilities. And when we see what's going on with the election of Donald Trump, and lately, after everything that's happened, support of him even going up, right, in some spaces, and not just with Trump, but other places too. Maybe Trump is America, and America is Trump, and that question is really nonsensical. America has already made the choice. So then the question becomes, what do people like me, African Americans, people who are our allies, people who have greater spiritual sensibilities, human sensibilities, what do we do in the face of that choice? So I don't know the answer to it right now, but as we see the continued escalation of what I really see as rather cold and vicious behavior in America, we certainly have to ask ourselves that question.
And briefly, let me ask you this. How does this impact, this greater discussion we're having, affect people of color here in Canada and really across the globe?
I think America's kind of been a vanguard nation for a while, but it's not the only place that these things happen, but it's one of the places where these things are paid more attention to. And so therefore, we can disproportionately impact Canada in the world in a positive way, or we can disproportionately impact Canada in the world in a negative way, depending on our responses. So it's not to say that America is the worst place in the world, but it's not to say it's the best either, but how we grapple with these issues, I think, has some type of impact.
Dr. Ricky Jones, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I always like to spend time with my friends from the North.
That was Dr. Ricky Jones, professor and chair of the Pan-African Studies Department at the University of Louisville. Just ahead, YouTube sensation Rochelle Clark, formerly known as Crazy Light Skin Girl, talks about a platform that's given her a healthy living. A panel of social media platform experts discuss the impact their own pulpits are having on thousands of people across the globe. Algorithms, daily posts, likes, and subscribers. It's the life of a full-time YouTube sensation. Rochelle Clark is an online digital influencer on platforms such as YouTube and Instagram, boasting thousands upon thousands of followers. She joins me now from her home studio. Rochelle, you actually make a living on YouTube, connecting with audiences online. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so nice to see you, Sheldon. So yeah, that is what I do full time. I'm an influencer. I make daily vlogs, including my family, and I post my lifestyle on Instagram as well. So yeah, I've been able to make a living off of that, and it's really amazing.
Now, some people, they're still wrestling with this new phenomenon. Who are your followers? Who's tuning in?
You know, my followers are probably people just like me, and it's so different than when, like, maybe you're a TV star, you got all sorts of followers, but online, your following is very curated. There are people who find similarities in your personality, in your lifestyle choices, and those are the people who follow you. It's like, you know, they're looking to you for kind of guidance and ideas, creativity, and things that connect with them. That's where the connection lies. So yeah, those are my followers.
Wow, when you talk about connection and where it lies, I mean, your videos, they focus on family, eating, there's going out, it's just the daily life as you live it. My question is, what do you hope to be doing in 10 years and how will you evolve over that?
Well, it's so funny. I've recently kind of really started to grasp the idea of posting, of what it really means to post as a lifestyle person. And there's so much out there and there's so much, you know, influences as a creator. Me maybe seeing someone else's page and saying, oh my God, I wish I could be just like them. But at the end of the day, they want me to be me. And that is where, you know, that's where it all is. So I'm trying to be as true to myself as I can. And in 10 years, I really want to be able to affect, you know, my community, whether it be mothers or, you know, wives or just, you know, people trying to be entrepreneurs and start their own business. So in 10 years, I really want to see myself being, you know, more of a leader and influencing people coming up behind me, young people just getting their footing out there in this social media world. And I want to be able to give them, you know, the opportunities I wish that I had coming up as an internet influencer.
Wow, and you're talking about mentorship to other digital influencers who are coming up, and I know they're watching this. I know they're sharing and sharing and sharing again. My question, though, to you is, what do you think is your online digital responsibility to your followers?
Honestly, it comes back to just being true to myself. And I think, as I said, people are looking up to me. People want to be inspired. And I mean, I have a responsibility to be honest, to be myself. So, you know, there's just so many avenues you can take online. You can be so many different people, but you want your audience or your viewers or your followers to see who you are, and also give them the courage to be themselves. So flaws and all, right? I just try to be me. And, you know, I'm not perfect. And as an influencer, people tend to look at me as perfect, or tend to look at me as, you know, I want to be her, or I want to be like her. But I just want to be able to encourage my followers to just be themselves. And that is, you know, the message I always want to leave with my followers. Yes, be yourself.
Rochelle, I want to throw this at you briefly. It kind of just came to my mind. Do you feel like online digital and being a YouTube sensation chose you, or did you choose it? And what is your advice to those who perhaps want to go down that road, or others who may feel, I want to influence people, but it seems digital is the only way, but that's not me. Does digital choose you, or do you choose it?
It's, you know, both. It's kind of half and half. You can choose digital, and I mean, there are people who really make it into a business where it's not really about them at all. Where on the other hand, when social media chooses you, you know, I find it's more you out there, and your face is out there, and it's more, you know, direct. And especially in my line of content, mine is very personal. It's family related. My kids are involved. So you can choose what kind of online influencer you want to be.
Wow.
But in my case, I think it chose me. I really wasn't looking to try to be an influencer. And it kind of just happened, and it happened so quickly. And in regards to that, I would say it's nice to take the time to curate and develop your online following, your online presence. And I find when you do it slowly, you'll get the followers who really connect with you. And they're not just following you because someone else is following you. They're following you because they see something in you that they want to be a part of.
And Rochelle, I'm hoping at the end of this interview, you can retweet context, everything context, and also me, and introduce me to your followers, and let this growth on all digital come on all fronts.
Yeah, it's all about sharing.
Rochelle Clark, thank you so much for joining me.
All right, no problem, Sheldon. I'll see you next time.
Our next guests are two men that believe in using their social circles to serve God. Nick Runyon is the Executive Director of North America for CV Outreach. Isaac Hainkamp runs the ever-popular Instagram account, Kingdom Driven Daily. Thanks, gentlemen, for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Nick, I want to start with you. You know, you say you want to demystify church. How are you able to do that in your social networks?
Yeah, what we found is that there are literally hundreds of thousands of people every day who are searching for spiritual questions. And what we want to do is they're using Google and things like that. When they do so, we want to connect them relationally with a pastor in their local community, because church becomes a person at that point, rather than kind of an organization or a thing they don't understand.
So in that capacity, I mean, what have you seen happen? You know, in what ways are you connecting people?
Yeah, so we have a program we call CV Outreach, and what it does is we use our operational capacity in technology and marketing and some of those strategy development kind of things, and we leverage that for church partners. And so currently we have over 1,300 church partners around the world, and what we're seeing is things like just this past weekend, we had a young man was searching for some marriage help on Google and was connected with Pastor Michael in California. The conversation continued. It turns out this man was suffering from PTSD, and it was really impacting his marriage. That was on a Saturday night. By Sunday afternoon, he and his wife were having lunch with Pastor Michael and his wife, and now they're getting involved in marriage counseling and receiving help from their church. That's exactly what we want to happen in that type of situation.
Yeah, it's a direct line to the church, mobilizing the church as well with the services that they have. Isaac, your account is more of a personal side versus organizational. Talk to me a little bit, because this all started out of personal devotions and your talents of marketing. Yeah, so I had been working with brands for quite a while, developing social media strategies and digital strategies and that type of thing. And it kind of got to a point where I started going on my own social media over time, and I realized, man, what is the thing that I care about most in terms of getting this message out to the world? And I realized it was God's word and God's message. And I realized at that point, man, I've been getting so many brands messages out there. I haven't been focused on the most important thing, and that's where I kind of felt this need to go take action, try to move the needle for the kingdom in whatever way I could on these social platforms. And for me, it really started as a personal thing as well, because I realized how much I was consuming on a day-to-day and how much information was coming into my mind and how little was actually going back out. And I think that it's important, like even when we're doing our daily devotions or whenever we're reading the word and that type of thing, it's important to reflect. But then I remember listening to this one message, and it was just based on the fact that, yeah, you reflect and you sit on this word and you absorb it, but then you got to go and do something with it after, right? And that for me just kind of started posting a little graphic every day to Instagram about whatever I was doing my morning devotions on. And yeah, it just started building an audience that way. And I guess the posts have really kind of reflected what God's been laying on my own heart personally that day, whatever it might be. And yeah. It's growing. I mean, 22,000 K and growing within 1 year. I mean, it's quite incredible. You know, but people would think that maybe that message just stays online, but you've actually developed relationships out of this? Yeah, so one of the biggest things that I've noticed is the lack of depth that I see a lot of brands and even ministries to an extent being able to reach. So I built this really wide audience online, right. Tons of people, and I was just trying to figure out how can I go a little bit deeper with these people. And for me, it was so important to think, okay, I could direct these people back to the local church. I don't have something like that set up at this time. Nick's doing it for you, don't worry. But for me, I was like, man, the most depth is going to come in person. And the most depth is going to come when we're building relationships face-to-face, experiencing that fellowship in person. So like last month, we threw a worship night. We're in Burlington, Ontario now, but we threw this worship night in Hamilton. Had like 100 people show up, and I'd say like probably about a quarter of them, maybe like 20%, 25% are from like my own kind of circles and people that came because they had heard about it. But I mean, I was talking to people who have been following this account since the beginning, saw me post this Instagram story about a worship night in Hamilton. And they show up. And they're just showing up. And to me, that was the opportunity I saw for taking this online engagement and creating in-person depth, right? And yeah, and I think both sides, Nick and Isaac, we see that it's the relational aspect of connecting people to God at the end of the day. Gentlemen, thank you for your time today, and yeah, we'll be praying for your ministries. Thanks a lot, Molly.
Thank you.
Just ahead, navigating ethics on social media. Context blogger John Stackhouse speaks with Lorna Dueck on the rising popularity and controversy of author and professor Jordan Peterson.
One of the things we seem to know, is that to the degree that rights are extended to women, economic prosperity follows.
And that is Professor Jordan Peterson from the University of Toronto. He's currently on a sold-out tour with his book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. Jordan Peterson's rise to prominence has been swift. He's revered and despised. Is he a teacher or a preacher? There's so many articles, YouTube videos, and yet many questions surround this psychology prof. One thing is clear, his social media pulpit is at rock star status. John Stackhouse speaks now with Lorna on the Jordan Peterson phenomenon.
Well, if we're going to open the ethics conundrum that Professor Peterson has cracked open, no one better to help us than our own provocative blogger, John Stackhouse. And John, thank you for coming into the house. It's so seldom that we get you here at your post as Professor of Religious Studies at Crandall University. You live in Vancouver. Good, you've landed in the middle. Okay, what has been opened in this ethics questioning. We now have this as the #1 bestseller in Canada. What is going on with the Peterson controversy?
Well, it seems to me Professor Peterson is giving lots of people permission to say and think things that they were saying and thinking already, but now when a full professor of psychology at a fine university like the University of Toronto says them, just the way Donald Trump has let some people say some unpleasant things, given them permission, I think Jordan Peterson gives people permission to say what they want to say, to say that they're tired of being pushed around by ideologues on the left, and they're tired of people policing their speech. They're tired of feeling self-conscious about themselves, particularly young men, who is his main audience. And Peterson is a kind of tribune for those people who feel that they don't have representation in the big world.
Okay, so but what he has tapped into is this great pushback against groupthink, that we all must think the same way. And is there a good that's coming out in this that we need to somehow figure out how do we navigate making a bigger place for all of us?
Yeah, I think that's good. Peterson's understanding of contemporary culture, I don't think is really very accurate. He's a professor of psychology, after all, not a professor of philosophy or culture. And his own constructive proposals based on Jungian psychology, I don't find them very compelling. What I find interesting about him, though, is when he's very sensible and commonsensical, and when he's quite direct about listening hard to people, arguing carefully with what they say, bringing evidence to the table, and then putting up an inferential chain of reasoning. He's really trying to help us think like grown-ups rather than just think like angry 11-year-olds. And I think Jordan Peterson's done us a service that way.
Okay. Your specialty is to now help us think with a Christian ethic, a Christian view of what's right and what's wrong. Where does the Christian voice start to shape the imagination on these kinds of issues?
Well, I think the Christian voice can agree with Dr. Peterson in a number of ways, that it is important for us to think of what it means to be a man or a woman, a human being nowadays, to think about how to be a community together when we disagree with each other about lots of different things. The Christian faith has a lot to say about that, and Christianity has a lot of experience around the world, for better and for worse, in trying to get people of different sorts to live and work together. And part of what I've tried to do in some of my writing is to help us think according to the Bible's wisdom, which I think is perennially helpful to us.
Okay, we want to encourage our viewers to look at your new book, Why You're Here, Ethics for the Real World. Let's just unpack a bit there about why would God leave us a bit of a code, a bit of an instruction manual, right? Isn't that really what we're looking for, is what on what's right and what's wrong? What's God's best ideas here?
Yes. Well, I mean, the world's a complicated place, and as we all know, life is hard. And so the Bible isn't a little pamphlet which just says it's nice to be nice and it's good to be good, you know? The Bible's this big, thick, complicated document, but so's the owner's manual in my car. It's a big, thick, complicated document too. So the Bible is given to us and to people of every culture to give us the resources we need to think along with God about why we're here, what we're supposed to be doing, how we're supposed to treat each other. And it needs to be complex, and we need to have good teachers teach it to us so that we will know what to do.
What's at the baseline of God's heart in his instruction manual for my life?
God's fundamental concern is to love us and to help us flourish, because he does love us. And the Bible is given to us, and Jesus came to us in order to help us find the path back to God and to a flourishing life. It's all about being our best selves in a way that's going to last forever.
All right. Okay, Why You're Here, Ethics for the Real World, with our context blogger and occasional on-set guest. It was great to have you in the studio, John. Thank you.
Lorna.
Thanks, Lorna, and we look forward to an upcoming interview with you and Jordan Peterson.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, well, we're at the end. That's a wrap on our Social Pulpit show.
Yes, we enjoyed our time together, enjoyed our time with you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on our own social media channels.
Twitter, Facebook.